Hello, let's discuss what are the professional opportunities for chartered accountants in the current scenario. And this is Anurag. In terms of my credos, I have worked with organizations like Deloitte, ITC, Tata Steel, and Aditya Birla Group. And as far as my academic credentials are concerned, I have worked with such organizations after studying from St. Xavier's Calcutta and securing rank 22 and 25 in CA final and CA IPCC, and I've done a 1-year MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. Along with other credentials, I was awarded something called the Nihil Ultra Certificate of Excellence for the best overall performance in the Department of Commerce in St. Xavier's. That's 1 in 800 to get this. Now, and I've also been associated with cajobportal.com. That's the first recruitment website in the country, exclusively for chartered accountants, cost accountants, company secretary, and MBA finance. So my interaction with various corporates has helped me give you some understanding of where is the career trajectory for a chartered accountant. Now it is very interesting. It's not just time to change for a professional like a chartered accountant. With the advent of the Ind AS, the GST, and the host of changes that have happened in terms of internal financial control and so forth, it's not just whether a professional is willing to change, but also the speed at which he or she can change, because you run the risk of being extinct in case you do not keep up with the times. So chartered accountancy is a course during student life. Most people will see it like this. It's just a smooth part. So a lot of people in Calcutta, they ask me, sir, आपने क्या किया? मैंने chartered accountancy बोला और, and I say, bhai, this is quite a lot. And the answer is that, sir, I see every time Tom, Dick and Harry doing chartered accountancy. So students see something about this. Okay, I'm going to study something, attend some tuitions, but actually it might end up being a path full of detours, because you might get stuck up in an strategic subject like called ITSM in CIPCC and get stuck for 5 terms in that. In CA final, given the volatility in the results, which is more than that of the Bombay Stock Exchange, in case you clear, it's well and good. In case you don't, there is a lot of ifs and buts that comes into the picture. Now coming to the contents of this, we will basically try to understand what are the dynamics of being in industry vis-a-vis being in practice, what are the challenges in the profession, and how do you convert these challenges into opportunities, with some idea into what have been the traditional areas where chartered accountants have established themselves, what are the emerging areas, and so forth. So if you look at the comparison between industry and practice, the challenge for setting up a practice is the initial startup period, because you will, like any other industry or any other business venture, will have a gestation period of 2 to 3 years before you can assume full scale in terms of your occupancy in the practice, because it's very difficult to get clients today. As compared to that, if you join a company like ITC at a salary of 20 lakhs per annum, you start earning 1.5 lakh rupees per month from day zero, which will not happen in practice. While if you stick on to practice, the growth can be quite faster as compared to that in industry. So that's one dimension. In terms of job satisfaction, people keep asking me about what will be more fulfilling, whether it's going to be industry or whether it's going to be practice. And I would rather imagine that practice gives you a huge variety to work upon. So that's the common argument which people say, that I can work on accountancy, taxation, both direct and indirect, ROC and compliance work, and I can work in search, seizure, scrutiny cases, and I can help clients prepare business plans. But let me tell you that having worked in various corporates for almost a decade now, job satisfaction can also be very high in corporates, but it will completely depend on the kind of profile that you opted for. So in terms of a profile like M&A or treasury or financial planning, every day actually is quite a unique learning day for many of the professionals that I've interacted with. However, if you got stuck up with, let's say, some remote location and you were handling payroll, yes, payroll, and there are some billion-dollar companies which might be very happy having chartered accountants on board doing reconciliation of customer RTGS and delivery orders, because for them it's a huge sales book, 15,000 crores per annum. So they do not mind up paying 9 to 10 lakh rupees to a chartered accountant. I had a friend in Citibank who was making demand drafts and ensuring complete control over the process of issuance of such demand drafts. So from a job satisfaction standpoint, that was very bad. And then you can say that industry might have you land up in such roles. So again, it's very subjective. In terms of job security or recession, I would put my peace of mind as that job security is very high in corporates as well, unless you join some fragile startup which has not yet stood on its feet. If you join any mature corporate like a Reliance or a Tata or a Birla, job security remains very high. And I was clearly told in any organization that I have worked that you will not be fired from the organization for non-performance except if you are caught taking a bribe. Now, practice also is in many ways recession proof, because compliance work, which is a core component of the practice in a chartered accountancy profession, is kind of recession proof. You do not stop filing returns just because India's GDP has not grown at 8%. Demonetization or no demonetization, you continue to have search, seizure and scrutiny cases. So there I think it's both the same. You have here remuneration, which is a CTC which grows at some linear rate. Professional fees can go at a stupendous rate. So if you look at many professionals, for example, people who've carved a niche for themselves in the service tax domain in Calcutta, the kind of growth these people have registered, they are all over Inox movie theater screens, TV advertisements, radios and metro hoardings. They have really grown. And there comes the branding dimension also. Branding for sure will be more in case you are an established professional in the practice domain, because in industry, see what happens is that the moment you leave Tata Steel, you become ex-Tata Steel. And unless you quit Tata Steel at a very senior position, your personal recognition there is relatively very low. In terms of sharing of knowledge, I think in practice you get a larger revenue to do that, because you have more flexibility in terms of your work hours. So you can attend these CPR seminars, share knowledge. In job, I think because of the hierarchy and bosses, it will be completely subjective upon whether the boss is a good boss and wants you to share knowledge on various forums, or he will make you remain stuck up in the daily mundane jobs. In terms of scalability, certainly practice stands to score much better than industry, because today you have a practice in Calcutta, you can open a branch in Guwahati, one in Siliguri, one in Balasore, one in Bhubaneswar and one in Patna. So in terms of scale, you can network with international firms, forge alliances. Now the institute has come up with multidisciplinary firms as a concept. So scalability becomes very huge. In job, you can only grow at some X% of CTC per annum and change jobs to further grow the CTC, but that scale is quite difficult. And succession, again, practice scores, because if you have a established practice, you have something that you can leave for the next generation. So the next generation is far more secure and far more open to risk taking than someone who would be in job, because again your son or grandson will have to start, or for that matter granddaughter will have to start as a management trainee in a Coca-Cola or Pepsi. You need to fight your way up. How the greatest waste in life is the difference between what we are and what we could have become. So it's very important for you to understand what are those core competencies that you have. Again, it might sound to be very cliched, but what I learned in MBA was that every human being or every organization has some source of unique competitive advantage. So for example, my source of unique competitive advantage today is the fact that I have interacted with so many people over the last 1 decade that I have got some flavor of what happens in the world around. So my worldview in many ways has become a reason why I create these videos, and I have quite some following on YouTube for that. Now, if you look at these statistics, the institute was established in 1950, took around 52 years to reach a strength of 46,983, that's around 47,000 people, of which 52% people were associates in practice and only 48% were not in practice. Look at this trend. 10 years later, this number has gone up to 71,371 people in fellows from 46,983 and 1,21,142 associates from around 54,000. So in terms of the overall numbers, from 1,01,000 we've reached somewhere around 192. So two key trends. One, the number of people in the system has almost doubled in the last decade up to 2012. And if you look at the trend, more people are now joining industry vis-a-vis practice. So that is a reason for us to be circumspect about whether practice is a lucrative field for chartered accountants anymore, especially the ones who will set up new practices. This same number has now gone up on 1st of April 2016 to 2,53,000. So look at the trend. 1,01,000 moves to 192 in a span of 10 years and again becomes 253 again in a span of 5 further years. In fact, 4 further years. So the competition in terms of intensity has become acute, and while that might be a reason for many people to become doomsayers, but I would rather imagine that the opportunities in the market, especially for people who are innovative, who are willing to move beyond the traditional areas, has also grown up manifold. So there are a host of challenges in terms of economic, regulatory, organizational and personal challenges. We have inflation, a competitive environment, and people going for cutthroat competition in terms of lowering fees. Clients are expecting just too much. They might, so in terms of, let's say, GST implementation, I know organizations that have paid an X amount of money to a big four firm and will ensure that that firm does all their compliance, all their advisory, does internal training. So the firm will end up making a loss on such contracts, but yeah, they will just leverage the brand of the client. So there are economic challenges on practice today. In terms of the regulatory challenges, the frequent changes in the applicable standards and guidelines has become a huge area of concern because you need to be continuously updated. There are new standards, new circulars coming up every day. The entire stream of accounting standards is being slowly in a phased manner being replaced by Ind AS. You have now IFC in terms of the internal controls over financial reporting. GST has come up, and so the nature of the auditor, for example, will become far more onerous in terms of reporting obligations under the Companies Act 2013. Too many compliances, cumbersome procedures. You will now be subject to a lot of regulatory action. So you will now have a chartered accountant conference having members being urged to take up professional indemnity insurance policies, so that in case they are found to have verified financials which are subsequently found to be fraudulent, they can at least save themselves from the huge legal liability in terms of monetary outflow. A chartered accountant today can even land up in jail for certifying financial statements which are subsequently found to be fraudulent. So the Companies Act 2013 in many ways has actually created a lot of challenges in terms of compliances, and also your audits will now be subject to peer review board, a concept which was there before as well, but now it's being implemented with all the more vigor and intensity. There are HR challenges today because if you look off the kind of people who are coming into the system today, the youngsters of today, with all due respect, are more interested in what they will get from the organization vis-a-vis what they will give to the organization. So the standards in terms of work ethics, as in can I give myself my 100% to an organization, is relatively lower. The people are more obsessed with brand, more obsessed with flaunting. It's a generation which has grown up in such luxury that their ability to face challenges has reduced. So the absence of quality committed staff will become a challenge. Getting articles is a nightmare for even the most professional chartered accountants today. So the expectations in terms of salary has also gone up. there's inertia to study, and so forth. And technological challenges, is it just Tally today? No, it is not. It is Tally ERP. Is it just about filing returns? No, it's about e-filing, it's about XBRL, it's about being active on social media, it's about having your website, doing search engine optimization, just too many things which have emerged as challenges for chartered accountants. And on a personal level, you have knowledge updation as a thing. Are you slow or fast in terms of technological changes? Because most clients are moving to an SAP or an Oracle 11i kind of platform. Banks are moving to core banking systems, and still there are chartered accountants who prefer the pen and paper kind of an audit, the black box approach. So will that be something which will continue to be tolerated by clients is a thing, and soft skills might be a challenge, emotional energy might be a challenge. So the way forward is to set up goals, plans, and then form strategy as to where do you see yourself fitting into the overall scheme of things, the way the economy is moving, and what are your core competencies that you are wanting to leverage. So you identify the challenges, you provide the vaccines, because every risk will have a mitigant, get immunized, perform the work, and build revenue, brand, and experiences. I think these are the three things. So at the end of your career, you must have a kitty in terms of actual bank balance, a brand for yourself, people know you as a Subodh Agarwal, a Ranjit Agarwal, or Sushil Goyal, or in the Calcutta context, or a Uttam Prakash Agarwal, on such things. And experiences, you must have versatile experiences. My personal belief is that you should have such versatile experiences that you might even have matter enough to write 2-3 books about your experiences. That should be the objective. A change in approach is control the processes, not people. Today people will come and go. The idea is to create systems which will work for you and which will ensure that the group of people assume collective accountability and work for you. In the midst of challenges, opportunities come. Now let me get into specific things. So today you can either have a chartered accountant working in traditional areas like audit, which is statutory audit in consonance with the Companies Act, internal audit, where a lot of new opportunities as well as challenges have emerged, because internal audit is where the management believes that a vigilant professional will not just do vouching verification or check internal controls, but also come up with revenue saving points today. So the idea has moved from auditor being just a pen and paper tick in the box kind of a person to someone who creates real value in terms of EBITDA, your contribution in terms of, you might just do an internal audit but come up with reasons of time and motion study showing redundancy in manpower, and thus manpower rationalization, logistics rationalization, and so forth. And then tax audit under section 44AB of the Income Tax Act. Now taxation in terms of direct and indirect tax, a lot of people ask me like, what is the career here? I think in taxation, one good part which I have seen is that it's very knowledge intensive. So if you are someone who is that knowledge professional, cut off from the reality of the world in terms of the real world politics, want to get absorbed into a continuous stream of knowledge, this is a good field. Because direct tax again will have multiple fields. You might want to specialize into search Caesar, into appellate proceedings. You might want to specialize in section 80 deductions and so forth. Or indirect tax, where GST has come up and replaced the plethora of taxes. So someone might want to get into advisory, someone might want to get into compliance or litigation. So each man to his or her taste. This is one field where if you want to really feel valued as a knowledge professional, you might want to look at taxation as a field. Certification again, which is a sweet income for most professionals, certifying inventory, certifying subsidy, offtake for the purpose of royalty and so forth. Now management accounting in terms of accounting services is one interesting area. As corporates today move into the Ind AS regime, they will require professional help to help them go through this transition, and as knowledge professionals you can work here. And then specialized audits or special purpose audits, which could be a special purpose audit as per the service tax department or as per the excise department where chartered accountants are impaneled, bank audits, concurrent audits, or any specialized audit with a specific objective where, for example, the government appoints you to look at whether grants which were allocated by the United Nations have been appropriately used, or the outlay under the Manrega has actually been used to create jobs. So those are interesting areas that have been there. And then corporate laws, a lot of professionals want to specialize in this field because with the advent of Companies Act, compliance has become a huge thing. So fines are no longer 50 rupees and 500 rupees or 100 rupees. It runs into 1000 rupees per day, subject to a maximum of 10 lakhs. A company secretary has become a KMP. The CFO has to certify financial statements, and therefore corporate law in terms of compliance with MCA, the whole thing becoming electronic has increased manifold. If you look at specialized services now, there are arbitration and conciliation services which have come up in a huge way because of the kind of interaction corporates have with each other, and so therefore there is this Arbitration and Conciliation Act which will look into. So if you look at this recent case of the power plants of Adani and Tata, the ultra mega power plant, so this whole thing has gone into arbitration where Adani and Tata had given a commitment to supply power for the next 10 years at zero inflation, assuming that they will have mines in Indonesia and they will mine from there and use it here. Now the Indonesian government came up with a new tax on export of coal. Since it's a change of law, but it's a change of law outside India, now different courts will have different viewpoints on whether that is something which comes as a force majeure, and therefore are you as a company, as Tata Power or Adani, entitled to additional compensation? Now if you look at the latest ruling, they have gone against Tata Power and Adani, which effectively wipes off the entire net worth of Adani, and the stock fell down by 20% in a single day. So now arbitration and conciliation has become a huge thing. Planning and structuring revenue models is one specialized area where chartered accountants have come big time. So the kind of profile that I currently work in an organization is where I help the organization create long-term financial models, which could be, let's say, bidding for a highway project for 40 years or bidding for a coal contract. So there you need to look at cash flow streams of 30-35 years with all the kind of inflation risk and crude oil risk and exchange risk, and try to extrapolate multiple scenarios of business which can emerge and help corporates take a measured decision with respect to bidding for these contracts or acquiring M&A assets. Now one interesting area that has come up is investment consultant or family offices. So a lot of companies now have these promoters like Aziz Premji. He's got a family office because of the huge corpus that they have. They now need professionals to help them understand what is the best investment avenue for such money. So whether it's some startup or, so Ratan Tata for example has got a family office for R&D trust where he invests in a host of startups. I know a friend who manages the family office of the guy who had sold off Sukam inverters to Schneider. So now he sits on cash of worth 1500 crores and he keeps on investing that in various options as and when money comes. I had a friend who was in the RPG group managing the investable surplus of the Goenkas. So any bond issuance, any new arbitrage opportunity, these people help them do that. Now forensic audit and accounting has come big way. The kind of crimes that have come, the recent has been this Bitcoin scam where malwares have come again. It's a huge area of breach of cyber controls. You have, I know people in Big Four who are now working specifically in forensic, post the Satyams of the world, helping corporates understand where are control lapses, and in case frauds have actually happened, how they will be able to find the culprit and hold him to task. International taxation, this is quite interesting. So what has happened, for example, is that India had a international taxation agreement with double tax avoidance agreement with Mauritius, where all the FII money that was brought into the Indian stock markets was routed through Mauritius or through Singapore because of the favorable double tax avoidance agreement. Now those loopholes, for example, have been curtailed. Now this money is now being routed through Paris, and that is being done within the ambit of the law because the law permits that. So there are two dimensions to this. What is within the ambit of the law? One is the structuring part of it so that your client optimizes on the tax thing. So transfer pricing, for example, an Apple iPhone, at what price it will be transferred from the parent to the Indian subsidiary in a knockdown stage to be further assembled in India so as to save tax incidence for Apple from the global standpoint. So these companies, for example, have parked cash in tax favorable destinations which runs into some $500 billion plus in terms of amount, Microsoft or Apple. So international taxation today, you will have professionals who will be expert of the Indo-Cyprus double tax avoidance agreement. That is the kind of expertise which has come up. M&A, the most exciting part, you work on real life deals, work into valuation, due diligence, transactions, work with the views of the organization. So this role is good, one because it allows you to apply your knowledge, understanding a target from the business standpoint, from the past accounting standpoint, valuation standpoint, technical standpoint, and also working with the top management, so you don't get stuck up in the hierarchy here. So financial modeling is one key skill set here. You will need to interact with the big fours of the world for the financial due diligence, with the legal firms like Amarchand Mangaldas for the legal due diligence, and technical firms. So in an M&A, it is not just to work on MS Excel. You have to go to the targets, plant and machinery, look at the state, see what is the boiler, is it of Chinese origin, look at assessors who can help you understand the technical prowess of the plant and so forth. So this is very interesting profile that I have enjoyed working and so forth. And if you look at the emerging scenarios, international accounting. So while Indians companies will have Ind AS coming in a big way, in case you have Ford Chennai, which is the subsidiary of Ford US, and therefore if Ford US prepares IFRS compliant accounts, it will necessarily have the Indian entity to recast its Ind AS accounts into IFRS compliant accounts or US GAAP accounts. So a lot of international accounting practice has emerged. You have this entire belt of KPOs, from a Credit Suisse to a Goldman Sachs to a Barclays to a Shell and a Standard Chartered, which are predominantly into international accounting and reconciliation. Business support services, for example, the controllership team of Goldman helps their brokers worldwide reconcile trades with their fee income, and that's a huge area though. They pay around 10.5 lakh rupees to a fresher. Look at management audit, we've discussed that, where management wants EBITDA positive actionables emerging from your audit. You can help corporates work on their risk management framework, and risk today emanates not just from economic factors, it emanates from control standpoints. What if your internal employee misuses the position of and creates a corporate governance scam, commits something to third parties on email which is beyond his or her scope, putting your company into a soup? Can you have risk management strategies, especially now with ICFR coming, Internal Control over Financial Reporting? Securities and other laws. I had a professor in IIM Ahmedabad who used to specialize in the takeover regulations of SEBI, and there are just 2 or 3 people in the country who specialize in such complex laws. So do you have the wherewithal to specialize in niche areas like securities and takeover laws? You can get impaneled with various regulators, be it a service tax or an excise, or you might want to get involved even with Sports Authority of India and help them create effectiveness and accountability of the government expenditure. There are now services related to information technology. So GST has 2 dimensions. One, GST has people advising corporates on the compliance part of it, and some who will help corporates redesign their IT systems to generate the kind of data which GST requires. So companies like Pricewaterhouse or Ernst & Young or Deloitte, or for that matter small-time practitioners, will also have a lot. So Tally ERP, for example, is coming up with a GST compliant version, because unless your returns are put up in time, unless the matching happens, your clients are not going to get the GST input credits. So now IT, for example, so Malaysia, when they implemented GST, the servers crashed because the kind of humongous data that emerged from the GST implementation, the servers were not able to take. So as an IT professional, are you able to look at that? Are you able to look at information technology systems in banks from a risk standpoint? So just to avoid an NPA, if you have a system where someone does a credit of 10 rupees and then reverses that at the end of the month, ensures that when the SQL query is run for dormant accounts, you have a credit in this account. And United Bank of India was prone to such IT scams only, or malware, or this whole thing which has recently come where they want Bitcoin payments for the ransomware to leave your computer. So those are areas where chartered accountants can really help corporates design customized ERPs and so forth. Risk and knowledge management is an important area today. So is wealth management. So as a chartered accountant, you can help actually people take decisions with respect to their investment portfolio, be it mutual funds, stock, or so forth, because you have that entire gamut of academic knowledge which you have for analysis of financial statements, understanding business models, looking at compliance and so forth. And VCPE, again, that's a very niche profile. A lot of chartered accountants want to get into this, and ideally someone with a CA and an MBA combination is best positioned to gain an entry, simply because entry barriers have been so structured. So private equity is where you actually take up a stake in a company of 15-20% stake and help that company grow. For example, Ganesh Hata in Calcutta recently got 100 crore rupees from Motilal Oswal Private Equity. This money would be utilized to help Ganesh Hata scale to the next level. And then after 3 to 4 years, Motilal Oswal will seek an exit via an IPO or selling to a third party. So the investments into the Snapdeals, the Flipkarts and the Amazons and the Olas, Ubers of the world is also a part of VCP and angel investing. So this is an emerging service for chartered accountant. If you look at corporate finance as a field, you have internal audit function reporting to CFO as an audit. You have taxation, which we've studied recently, controllership, where you work on SOX, governance, risk and controls, financial reporting and assurance, treasury and subsidiary accounting. Treasury, again, you look at investments, you look at cash management, the liquidity management, so the basic things like surplus cash at the end of the day will be swept out of various collection accounts and parked into the main corporate account, and from there parked into a liquid plus scheme for a day. Now treasury and investor relations as an area is so interesting. You have FP&A, which helps the CFO and the board of the company look into the future of the company. So that's about creating 5-year plans and 10-year plans, budgeting, MIS reporting, secretarial jobs, the company secretary, regulatory compliance, and the CFO to business units and business support. So in companies like Wipro and Infosys, you have teams of chartered accountants which help these companies into deal pricing. So every time the technical team does a negotiation with a client abroad, this team will help structure contracts with the right clauses in place. They will look at pricing, and then they will look at project execution and order management and give analytics to help corporates understand where are they making money and where are they losing money. So this is the entire gamut of activities which someone in corporate finance can work. Then you can go for these post-qualification courses like Information Systems Audit, DIRM, like which is Insurance and Risk Management, MAC, CMC, TMC. You can actually specialize in international trade laws and WTO laws. So I think a lot of opportunities for chartered accountants working there. So you can design your own practice. The list is endless. The idea here is to innovate and take the path which was less followed, because as Robert Frost says, that is what made all the difference to him. He said, I took the path which was less traveled, and that is where I made all the difference. So it's about understanding niche areas to work in and seeing where are unmet demands of corporates and servicing the same. And experience sharing, you can become a stockbroker, inspection and compliance expert. Every DP that is opened will need to be investigated by a chartered accountant for compliance. So audit of stockbrokers, you can help corporates into process manuals, gap analysis as it should be, help people understand the taxation of shares, securities and derivatives. You today have PMS, portfolio management services, commodity broking, SEBI related areas, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, NBFCs and wealth management. And it's just, this figure is about MBA, but I think that is not pertinent to the current discussion. But yeah, if you look at the kind of salaries, it is much better than that. So protect your intangibles today: human capital, your existing relations, your client satisfaction. So a satisfied client through word of mouth will bring 4 more. So are you able to maintain relationships? Are you able to go out of your way to create value for your client? Have you been able to create knowledge and skills? Because why I'm telling you is that because artificial intelligence is coming in such a big way that just knowledge of taxation laws or knowledge of the Companies Act is no longer going to serve the purpose, because that is something which will become artificial intelligence induced. What will work in your favor is creation of processes, systems, and having the human dimension of the whole thing into place. Creating professional networks, liaising with clients abroad, having your own investment and fund management abilities, and then yes, health and happiness. No matter how successful you are a professional, if in case you are not healthy and happy, your health is going to deteriorate and you might collapse someday. So the movement here is from being just someone who looked after compliance into consulting, from value protection, which was the hitherto expectation of society from a professional, it's now into value creation. From being a service provider, it's into a solution provider. You don't contract only for a specific service. You say, okay, I will do all that it takes to give you that solution. And from size, it is now into positioning. So am I being able to position myself as a specialist in a particular area? It's no longer being the most popular general physician in town. It's about being a renowned cardiologist or a neurosurgeon. Because that's where people see value in you specializing in a particular thing. Ask any chartered accountant, and if he says that I'll do everything, I'm dead sure that you will have your own share of doubt that whether he can actually do anything. So tell people that yes, I do only transfer pricing. I help corporates only in financial modeling, and I think that positioning is going to help you go a long way in creating a brand for yourself. So where do you want to reach and how do you want to reach is something that you need to decide, either by as on a bullock cart or in a car or an aeroplane. Where do you want to reach? Your next practice is calling. Thank you so much. So everyone inside has got himself a piece of good news. The good news is that you really don't know how great you can be, how much you can love, what you can accomplish, and what your potential is, as told by Annie Frank. So all the best, friends, and do share your concerns, your doubts in the comment section. Help me try to understand whether I can be of any help to you. Thank you so much.